Before we get to the show, we have Pat Stango here, our producer. Pat had an idea. It's a brilliant one. What are you saying, Pat?
All right. So here's my idea. They hear a lot from us, but I want to hear from the Taste audience. I'm excited to hear from them. Matt, I know where you're eating and I know what you're cooking, but I want to hear, what are the tasters out there cooking?
The super tasters. That's our fan base. Write us in at hello@tastecooking.com and let us know where have you been dining out in your town. What products have you been buying at your local Erewhon or whatever the Erewhon is in your town?
Yeah, hot takes. I want to get some hot takes on food culture from our listeners, and we'll do a mailbag episode. It's not just for us to read them. We're actually going to read them on air.
Exactly. There is a point to putting this before the show. We're going to read them on air. Liza and I and Pat are going to read some of these on air and discuss them. So write us, again, hello@tastecooking.com is the email. Put listener question or listener feedback in the subject line so we don't miss it. hello@tastecooking.com. Now on to the episode.
I miss the places that I missed.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that I had gone deeper into New Jersey. I wish that I'd gone into Alaska. There are places that I'm still just like curious about, and my impression of them is just frozen in time.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Bill Addison is back on the show, and man, I am excited to talk to him. We've long been fans of Bill's writing, going back to his well-considered restaurant criticism in Atlanta, Dallas, San Francisco, for Eater as a roving national critic, and now for the 4+ years as the head restaurant critic at the Los Angeles Times. Bill is my favorite critic, writing about my favorite food city in the United States, and we catch up about Los Angeles and all of its beautiful colors and stripes and flavors and smells and all that. I love LA so much. We talk about the modern Korean scene, which Bill wrote beautifully about in a long essay. And Bill also gamely takes the taste check, which is one of my favorite 4 minutes in audio. I know you love it too. Bill's is an instant classic. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Bill Addison, welcome to This Is Taste. In the flesh. We haven't done this since 2018. This is your third visit.
Wild. Yes.
I love seeing you. You have great shoes.
Oh, thanks, man.
What are they? They're great.
My partner gave them to me.
They're cool.
They're Jordans.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Somebody stopped me in an airport to tell me how cool they were.
They're blacked out. They're cool.
And yeah, so.
That's all I'm going to say about your physical appearance. It's just your shoes. How was dinner last night? Where were you at?
I was at Uchi last night, which is the first California location of a restaurant that's been populating through Texas for the last decade. They started in Austin, and it's a case-by-case situation for me, whether I'm interested in restaurants. Yeah, in imports, exactly. Yeah. And I was the restaurant critic at the Dallas Morning News from 2007 to 2009 and went to the original in Austin there. And so because I have history with it, I'm interested in seeing kind of its evolution. It was interesting to see, like, you know, it's in West Hollywood, and there was definitely like an industry crowd happening. So yeah,
I've been to Uchi and Uchiko in Austin and in the Houston location as well. So I've been to Uchi quite a bit. And Tyson is an interesting character for sure, and interesting and is a loaded term. And I don't mean that negatively. I think I'd love to talk to Tyson one day. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to listen to that.
I'd love to talk, but we have a lot to cover, Bill, because I could have you on every 6 months because as we've established, LA is like the most exciting scene and city for food in terms of just writing, because there's just so many narratives, and I just want to go into a real general grab bag of topics. Because
let's
do it. Are you ready to go?
I'll do my best. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about private clubs in LA. I think San Vicente Bungalows comes up, Soho House, of course. You know, New York is having a moment with like the Frog Club, which I don't even want to mention ever again in this podcast. And the new Carbone, which I do, and I think Mario's going to come on the show and we're going to talk about it. It seems important to acknowledge that the club is having a bit of a moment, Bill. What do you think about the private dining scene, or the private club scene, we'll call it, membership club in LA?
I think that what's happening in New York with the restaurants that you've specifically mentioned, or the clubs that you've specifically mentioned, and what's going on here are two very different things. When I think of the San Vicente Club, which a friend belongs to, so I've been, and it's more about meetings and community and drinking and hanging out, and less about like I'm going very specifically for a culinary experience, and particularly with like a named chef.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I feel like Soho House, kind of the same thing. I'm not ragging on Soho House. I feel like it's just like everyone's, public meeting place now that none of us go into offices on a regular occasion.
Yeah.
So, so like brunch at Soho House in West Hollywood is a total thing. And I've been to a cool party that's happened in the downtown Soho, like a big art focused party. But yeah, it's not about the food here. Not yet.
Yeah. So it's not really a topic that you would cover as your remit, but it is a thing.
Not unless it crossed over. I mean, there are like, instances of like very private situations.
Ooh,
I know that
those are
that
interesting.
Operate right, but I haven't even been, because if I can't get in without like really wrangling an invite in some ways, then I'm not sure how it serves the reader. So
yeah. What about Sunset Tower? Is that?
Well, I am. I'll be writing about this at some point, so I guess I'm giving myself away. But I am really obsessed with martinis right now, and I mean like the purity of a good gin martini, and Sunset Tower is really like the place to begin that conversation.
I love it. I think I'm kind of like hewing into like exclusivity in LA, and like the idea of exclusive dining is quite fascinating in LA. There's just a lot of it going on.
I mean, yeah, I'd be interested in hearing more about what you're thinking about that. To me, the exclusivity all lies in places like Hayato, which serves 35 people a week, and you can hardly. It's just takes so much. I mean, I have all these alarms set, and I try every month to get in there so that hopefully in a 12-month period I can
re-review it for 101.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I can go once a year and check in for 101. The 101 Best Restaurants in Los Angeles, an annual guide that the Los Angeles Times puts out, to be clear.
Thank you for the
to
plug.
Listeners. So I think about that. I think about how hard it is, like the disparity of how much good food there is in Los Angeles, and how much of it, is in places that aren't in the center of the city, or not in fine dining spaces that's very easy to access, versus these restaurants that are just impossible to get into or take months, and what that disparity is like, and how regulars certainly have favor to get into places like that, or their email addresses, but that rides the fine line, right? Because these are all technically public restaurants we're talking about.
Technically public, right. And then that's a really good distinction. I want to ask you about Stay Zero Proof in Chinatown, which it seems you enjoyed your experience there. I've been hearing about this place, and I've been very skeptical of the NA bar, but it seems like in LA there's a really unique one happening.
Yeah, so I'm into it. It opened, to no surprise, right at the beginning of January, when that's the month for
the month we all decide not to drink alcohol.
however we're calling it these days. And it was interesting to me, because I felt like if every year there's sort of a mandatory covering of that topic around the end of the holidays, it felt like this year was the year that everyone in media wrote about it. I wrote kind of most NA cocktails really suck.
Ooh, brother.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
They just have no body to the texture. They're just a mixing of usually like one pre-concocted NA spirit, which is usually not delicious if you try it on its own, and then you're just adding things.
It's the worst trend in drinking pretty much ever.
Yeah. So there are two bartenders at a restaurant that I love very much called Cato, which is, a super high-end fine dining restaurant, but these two bartenders Han and Austin are just geniuses with NA cocktails. Neither of them happen to drink anymore, and so they have this extra investment. But it has everything you're looking for: the complexity, the sort of like the thing that your mind does when you take a sip of a cocktail and you go, "Oh, cool, what's this?" And like, what's happening? Yeah,
the body too, is
and the
mentioned.
body, right?
Like, we don't want to drink
texture.
Kool-Aid. Like Kool-Aid has no body, and drinks that aren't Kool-Aid have more body. And like we want to drink, we want body, we want texture, we want acidity, we want balance.
Yeah, exactly. So
Good.
I think they're really on their way with Stay. Two women who have long been in the film industry here, who partnered on this project. It's in Chinatown. They have attempted to be very mindful with the space that has some history in the city. There was a punk club there once upon a time.
Wow.
It's just stunningly gorgeous, and I like some of the cocktails more than others. There's one called the Ox that's kind of almost, in the bourbon profile. That's the one that I would recommend for people first. And yeah, I just think that subject has a long way to go, but I think the people are kind of on it. And so it's exciting to see where it'll go.
Thanks, Bill, for taking the interest in writing about NA and thinking it through as like writing about a destination, a bar that does it, and having a real discerning palate for NA. Because I wish there were more critics in our world who gave NA a fair shake.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've been doing this for 22 years now, which is shocking. Life goes by in a blink, and I'm not the young man that I was when I started this, and so I'm interested in just drinking less as a means of self-preservation.
Survival as a
right.
critic.
Although I don't intend to stop drinking alcohol, but I like the idea of drinking less of it, and I like the idea of having nights where I'm drinking something delicious and interesting that doesn't have alcohol.
I love it.
So yeah.
Next grab bag topic is Evan Funke.
Okay.
Evan Funke has had a pretty amazing couple years in LA. I've only been to Mother Wolf. I haven't been to Funky. I know you've been to both. Let me ask you about him specifically. What does he mean to LA dining right now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What I think is interesting about Evan Funke is his nexus of his very personal passion for Italian cooking with the kind of notions of power and Hollywood and celebrity that surround what he does.
Wow. Bell, you hit something there. That's so great. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, his father is a cinematographer, and so he grew up in that space. And if I'm not mistaken, without having notes in front of me, he cooked at Spago, or definitely like was in the sphere of Wolfgang Puck, who is, the progenitor, the grandfather of Hollywood power dining. And I think that Funke absolutely owns the mantle on that. And I think that there's a crowd that duly follows him wherever he goes with that. It's interesting because his first kind of independent restaurant that he really had his stamp on as a part owner is Felix in Venice.
Yep. Which I've been to as well.
I really liked it when I first went during my Eater years as Eater's national critic. And Jonathan Gold and I shared the opinion that maybe he was a little too attached to the notion of like molto al dente, just really too firm.
Yeah. As like a mission statement, as like a statement.
Yes. But he's honestly, I haven't had a direct conversation with him about that, but he's let up on that. I don't know why, but certainly my meals at Funky, of course you want pasta to have a little bit of bite of resistance of toothiness, however you want to phrase that. But
my guy, it can't be like hard and have no dexterity. It needs to actually have a nice mouthfeel.
Yeah, some suppleness to
it too. Yeah, we can just do word salad all day.
Let's do it.
A really great.
Yeah. So and my take, which I've said in writing, is that the best Funky restaurant is where a Funky is present.
Yeah,
and that is Funky in Beverly Hills. now. So
or
and
in
he's
Chicago,
or in Chicago, right, or in Vegas, or
Yeah.
So I haven't been to Funky since the fall when Funky the restaurant, when Funky the man was still very present, and so we'll see how it goes there.
Bill, let's unpack Poltergeist. It made your 101 list. It seems like this is performative cooking for a very small audience. But that's me having never been to Button Mash and had this very experimental cuisine inside an arcade. I'm just like slightly cynical, but I haven't tried the food, so I'm going to be super open-minded.
Sure.
What is going on there?
So we're talking about a chef named Diego who cooked at Bestia, one of our most celebrated and long-running modern Italian restaurants, who ran a pop-up called Estrano Things that was making things like mashing up notions of Taco Bell with traditional Italian cooking and the lines. It might have been one of the longest lines I've ever stood in for food. Estrano Things, both because it was so enthusiastically received by its fans, and also because they would kind of famously like take their time getting the evening started. So he popped up in this crazy space that is just a very lively throwback arcade that's especially busy on the weekends, and the menu is really crazy and all over the place. He does this one thing that is kind of universally beloved. It's his Thai Caesar salad, so the ubiquitous salad of Los Angeles, kind of through this really deconstructed mulchy lemongrass explosive lens, and it's delicious, and not everything on the menu is delicious, and he's like stubborn about like not giving up. Like, you can criticize this kind of horchata panna cotta with spiced crisp rice sprinkled around it that he puts on the tail end of a take on honey walnut shrimp. And he won't take it off the menu, man. Like, he believes in it.
Yeah, I've heard the honey walnut shrimp actually slaps, but you seem to like not be a big fan of it.
Well, I like the shrimp itself, but I don't like.
But you don't like the
panna cotta, which I've already said.
You've already said your piece. Yeah.
But what's interesting is, as the national food writers make their rounds for the annual lists of best restaurants. I have no insight as to what anyone ever chooses, but I will say that everyone expresses interest in Poltergeist.
Yeah.
I think because too, we're also talking about, I don't mean this as criticism, I mean this as reality check. I'm sure like all anyone ever talks about on your podcast is the difficulty of this industry. Yeah. And so it's not a time for taking risks unless you think they can really pay off. And I think that this was a low bar of overhead for him. And so he gets to just be as insane as he wants to be. And there's something incredibly exciting about that.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I think it's clearly there's like a different P&L for the Button Mash, like selling the cheese fries and, NBA Jam crowd.
Yes.
And then you've got this cool, I mean, it's obviously set up for the national critics because you've got a pedigree. He's been a chef here, Bestia, and with the pop-ups, but also hyper creative, which was what we want. We seek out chefs to do that, and good for him to be doing it in a situation that is maybe slightly lower risk.
Yeah, and as always, as we look for in Los Angeles, like the personal narrative to go with it.
Of course,
he's of Ecuadorian heritage, grew up in the Valley, went to Thai restaurants with his mom as like a special like bonding outing. And that leads you to like, reading Thai cookbooks incessantly and a Thai Caesar salad on the
I want to meet Diego. I want to try his food and meet him.
You should.
Switching gears in our grab bag, a little more serious note, and please be honest and speak freely as you always do. How do you negotiate the deep struggles of downtown? In one way, you want to pull for it. You want downtown to survive, but also you want to serve. It's a service journalism job. Like, you want to make sure you're reviewing restaurants and sending people to neighborhoods that are safe and accessible. You've got readers in Orange County. You've got readers in Ojai and SGV. Bill, how do you debate reviewing and writing about downtown Arts District restaurants.
Yep. I'm always just going to side on reviewing them. And if there's something particularly worth celebrating in that area, I'm going to send people to those areas. It's a block by block situation in downtown, and that's the reality. And I try in my reviews to even frame a bit of what the context around might be like, not to scare people off ever, but to just give them a taste, a sensory taste of what's going on. But, downtown remains such a vital place. And particularly it's hard to talk about because the issue of like where is safe or where is not safe is really hard for me to parse as a critic, because there are a few places where I'm not going to go for the sake of my job. And the Arts District, there's no reason not to go to the Arts District. There's no reason not to go check out Yongbon. There's no reason not to check out Baru, which are two examples of the great modern Korean cooking that's percolating in the city. So it is absolutely something to be aware of. And kind of the tricks of journalism online, where like if my colleagues in other sections of the LA Times are writing intelligent things about this subject, I'm happy to link to them in my own work, things like that.
Well said, Bill. I think that I agree fully. I think you have to obviously review where the good stuff is and not necessarily think about too much about the subtext or where the safety, because you agree. Same with New York, like it's block by block. You never know what's going to happen in certain neighborhoods, and I'm glad that you wouldn't penalize, and I never think you would, a place for being a restaurant for operating in a certain neighborhood. And speaking of downtown or Arts District, I think I haven't been, but the restaurant Yes with two S's, I like checked in with a few friends and it was like kind of polarizing but I hate to like talk about a restaurant without dining there myself, but you have. What's going on with Yes?
Yes. Yes is it is a polarizing restaurant. A chef, Junya Yamasaki, who was at a very celebrated London restaurant called Koya, took some time off, went back to Japan where he was born, and came to Los Angeles and is doing this kind of cool, very like grill forward, seafood and vegetable focused cooking. I thought it needed to find its footing when it started, and then it went through this phase where it like everything clicked and it was so good and so interesting. And he does this chirashi that I really liked that was just like vegan, but with like textures, like threw nuts in there. It was really outside the box, but I like in the summertime, particularly, you can imagine like all the incredible like mix of fruits and vegetables on there. And then it closed to do some like final construction on the restaurant, and it reopened with this semi-prefix menu. And a lot of people, it was just tough timing. I wrote my review, others wrote about it. It closed, came back, and then it was kind of different from what it had been when we reviewed it. And a lot of people were like, the feedback was like, I'm not having experience that you're having, and I'm like not loving this.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's a tough part of the job. It illustrates why restaurant reviews are time-stamped with a date.
Yes.
And it's a moving target, especially in places like LA.
And why I feel like something like the 101 guide is important, because it's an opportunity. I'm so grateful to like have it as part of my job to go revisit restaurants, to give kind of fresh impressions. And I have such mixed feelings about ranking, but even ranking kind of tells its own story about, how a restaurant is hitting in my experience. So I think Yes is in an interesting state of evolution, and I will be going back soon.
I really like this like look inside your process and the way it really does change, and how 101 is a catch-all for the year in dining.
Yes.
And you should definitely look for that. That comes out in the fall?
It comes out in December, early December.
We'll look for that
year.
Coming up, or actually in a while. So it's probably going to be a lot of changes.
I'm starting. It's
just starting.
It's all happening again. Yeah.
So Bill, I read your bagel map, and it seems LA is firmly, squarely, possibly roundly, has won the bagel wars with New York. I mean,
I'm gonna let you speak most, Matt. I'm scared of the New Yorkers.
Oh my God, no, I'm like a New Yorker, and I'm like, honestly, okay. Here's my take. I feel like LA is just full of life, and invention, and I'll link to that in the show notes. The bagel map of LA, and I'm sorry, New Yorkers, we honestly, there ain't shit happening. There's a few places in Brooklyn, but like there isn't a lot of life when it comes to the bagel right now, and there's a lot of standard places. But I like life. I like writing about life. So that's my take.
Yeah, I'm going to just agree with you on the fact that like it's always funny about Los Angeles too, because every city has its tropes, but then it also has its like anti-tropes too, you know what I mean? And like I think the food writers of Los Angeles are just now getting to the point where we don't couch everything we write about pizza here to be like, well, Los Angeles has never been known as a pizza town, because frankly, like ever since Pizzeria Mozza opened, you know, I think in 2009, although I could be wrong about that, it could be older, but like it's been like a growing, amazing pizza town. And now like I have no envy of other cities except for maybe like Chicago for the one time that I want like a deep dish pizza annually, and that's about all I crave it, but I do crave it that one time, and there's just so much good going on here. So I think that's happening with bagels. I think like, you know, baked like something, you know, Montreal style, but that isn't, and where you can get into heated debates about, is it even a bagel or what is a bagel? I think that's fun.
What's on the top of the list right now in LA? Did you rank them? I can't remember.
I did not rank them, and that was absolutely a group effort.
Yeah, of course. That is a group effort.
So I love Courage and Virgil Village, which has lines down the street and which Tejal Rao of the New York Times wrote about and really put that place on the map kind of as the worst of the pandemic was lightening up. And you know, Tejal,
she's right.
She's talking about
great palette there, Tejal Rao. New York Times newspaper based in New York City, calling L.A.
and one of the best food writers in America.
Hey, Bill, do you miss the roving eater critic days? I was such a fan of your work. The tenacity, the calories, the endurance when you were traveling the country, and there really isn't a role like that. I know, like, you know, guys at Food and Wine and BA and others are doing similar work, but you were doing like weekly reviews. Do you miss those days?
Yeah, I traveled year round for that job, so it wasn't just a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
The truth is, Matt, I do miss it, and I wish that I could be allotted 2 lives, because I was a splintered human at the end of 5 years on the road with no sense of home. A year and a half before I was hired at the LA Times, I sold my home in Atlanta. So I just was on the road about 20 days out of the month and stayed with friends in Brooklyn or Atlanta when I wasn't working. And so there was that, right? I have a partner, I have a home, I love our life. I love Los Angeles, and the world is in Los Angeles. And so that part is always exciting for me. But I'm such a wanderer, and I miss it. And I miss not just like diving into places, but I miss the places that I missed.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that I had gone deeper into New Jersey. I wish that I'd gone into Alaska. There are places that I'm still just like curious about, and my impression of them is just frozen in time. When I left the job in 2018, I miss the sense of knowing America, and I mean the privilege of that job is you know, unspeakable, and I'm very aware of that and very grateful for it. But the short answer is yes.
Yeah,
I miss it.
I'm glad you're honest. I mean, I feel like you clearly, you know, it had its shelf life, but man, you know, digging into Greenville, South Carolina must have been cool. Like just rolling into a town.
So cool.
And just having optimism and having this like idea that there can be the next great restaurant, in Charlotte.
Yeah,
maybe not
and
Charlotte.
not even right, but I mean, sure. I hope in Charlotte, honestly, and and not even just like sort of for me, it was about the sense of like the next hot food town,
right,
falling away and just meeting every place where it was, and digging into communities, understanding what makes Dearborn, Michigan, an incredibly special place. Why people love Portland, Maine so much. Even like Amanda Kloot, my editor, encouraged me to just go somewhere I wouldn't have expected to go, and I wandered around Montana, and that was weird and wild, and I just saw things I couldn't have expected to see.
Was there ever a town where you wanted to stay a 48 hours and you ended up staying a week? Just because you just loved.
I love Houston.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was just there in September. I love it.
And I'm so jealous. Another one I haven't been to in 2018. Yeah. I can give you all the obvious ones. New Orleans is still like, you just want to love that city. You want to understand what's like the culinary glue that holds that place together sometimes. But yeah, Houston is just I'm sorry that I don't get there.
Yeah, between like Tatemo, the tasting counter in the north side of town, and like Trill Burger. I mean, there's cool shit happening in Houston. You're like
speaking language that I have forgotten, which makes me so sad.
Oh, I know.
I don't know those places.
They're cool. They're up there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to wrap this grab bag and talk about a piece that you're working on that we've discussed a little bit. And I think it'll be out by the time we run this, but I'd like to know. It's a really cool idea, and it's comparing LA and New York Korean American restaurants, the modern Korean scene. And I just want to get a sense about where you're at right now in LA with modern Korean and really some of the big questions that you're debating while working on this feature.
Yes, and I will be honest and say that by the time people hear this, it will have been written, but I am very much in the thick of writing it right now, so I don't know exactly what's going to be there, but it was because Korean cuisine is such a fundament of dining in Los Angeles, and because Koreatown is the beating heart, the epicenter of the city, in both terms of food and geography, I think about Korean food a lot. So it was hard not to notice throughout last year that every major outlet that writes about food was doing really thoughtful pieces about this moment in modern Korean dining. And we're talking about fine dining that is sort of adopting kind of the French white tablecloth Euro notion of an atmosphere and a structure to the meal, with chefs who are embracing that and putting their own stamp on it in varying ways and varying degrees of depth of Korean flavors and techniques, right? So it just felt important for me, and my editors agreed to go eat through New York for a minute and see what was up, and then come back here. And it probably really annoys some people, but I'm just not interested at this point in my career. I used to write like mean reviews without a second thought. I worked in restaurants, and so I sort of had this chip on my shoulder, like, you can do better, so do better. And at this stage in my career, I'm so much more interested in like in a thoughtful examination rather than a like, well, sure, New York thinks it's got this, but LA's got that. Like
head-grabbing headlines,
right? It's stupid.
Masters. Yeah.
They're two different cultures. Yeah. So why not just like look at these two hubs of Korean culinary excellence in America and see what they're up to? And because Los Angeles is so grounded in tradition, and because our Koreatown is like an amazing wealth of Korean cooking, which you have thoroughly documented in your work, the notions of modern Korean are slower to percolate. And I'll just say before like kind of moving away from this subject, that I had a great talk with Hooni Kim, who has had several restaurants in New York, and that includes Meju right now, which is a small counter seat, gleaming, almost omakase style restaurant in the back of his banchan shop
in Long Island City.
Yeah. Where he's presenting in very beautiful modern ways, but the cooking is really based on jongs and the building blocks, like getting back to the building blocks of Korean food. But when we were having a conversation recently, I was talking to him and I asked him, what do you think prompted this moment in modern Korean dining in New York? And he said it was about chefs moving outside Koreatown, kind of moving away from K-Town. And I know that he means that both geographically, but also maybe as a state of mind too. And that's interesting to me because the three great examples of modern Korean dining that we have here, Yangban, Baru, and Perilla, which is a panchan shop, but great like California marriage of produce with kind of individualistic notions of how to flavor panchan.
In like a unique space where there's clearly going to be some ambition to expand at some
exactly
point.
Right. Yeah. All that, they're all outside our Koreatown.
Right.
And so it was just one little aha moment in researching this piece.
I love it, Bill. I'm not going to leave it there. I don't want to like jump in because I got a lot of thoughts myself. But my voice is a little cracking right now.
Let's come back
and
to
like
those thoughts
we could go long, but I love what you just said, and I'm going to link to in the show notes that piece. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check, Bill.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
The best fruit?
Peach.
Why so?
Oh man, there's literally nothing better. Like a summer fresh ripe peach is literally like a world of flavors in and of itself.
Do you ever get mail order?
I go pick peaches in August, and it's one of the great pleasures of my
year.
year.
In California?
Yes.
I'm ignorant. I always assume it's like not.
Oh no, my friend. Yeah, outside of Fresno, a farm out there. It's great.
Can you say the name, or is it like secret?
It's Masumoto.
Oh, sick. That sounds like a really fun story to go out and pick peaches, man.
Ooh, I've never written about it. I just do it for my own pleasure. Maybe I'll have to. Yeah.
The worst vegetable?
Sunchokes.
Yep.
Do people say that all the time?
We had actually the last person. You just can't, you just got to cook them.
Yeah, and I don't love it's just kind of sour, and I know they're there and they need to be cooked. But
when was the last time you got sick from a meal?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
You don't obviously say where it is.
Yeah, I won't say, but I hardly ever get sick.
Yeah.
Knock on mic stand. But it's been a while.
Yeah, I think think of things like sunchoke, where an unprepared sunchoke can send you.
Yeah, and like escalar, that fish, like there are things that right fish. Anyway, yes. Rough. Sorry, we're getting off.
We're
the topic.
getting into there. The best dessert.
Pie. I'm a pie guy. Pie forever. Nicole Rucker's Fat and Flour in Grand Central Market in Culver City is the best place for pie in Los Angeles.
It's like so cool that Nicole, from Grand Central to her new location, is like sticking with it. Because there's a lot of adversity when you open up things like Pie Shop.
And she's very open about it on her Instagram story.
Yeah.
And it's real, but she does it.
Yeah.
She keeps it up.
Shout out to Nicole. She's been on the show before. Your favorite American fast food chain?
Popeyes.
Oh, sick. I love that. Your favorite LA restaurant right now?
What a controversial question. So just please know I'm answering this so personally, which partly involves like something close to where I live and also something that just makes me deliriously happy. It's Quarter Sheets.
Yeah.
Quarter Sheets for Detroit-ish style pie and Hannah Ziskin cake, which is layers of like fruit and custard and weightless chiffon that's my other answer to what's the
we had Aaron in earlier today, and he mentioned I said Bill's coming in, you were coming in, and he's like, Bill just wants to have a meal. Bill just wants to come in, have a meal. He likes the pizza. I'm like, yo, your pizza's great. So.
Yeah, it's true. I do. I'm there like twice a month, which for a restaurant critic, constantly eating out is a lot.
Let's visit California. Your favorite non-LA California restaurant right now?
Ooh, that's a great question. Okay. You know what? I'm just going to say off the top of my head, because I've actually written about it recently, is a 9-year-old restaurant in Yucca Valley in the high desert called La Copine. It is so worth a detour. It's just really soulful, personal, easy to love cooking. Please go there.
Yeah, your Palm Springs desert piece is coming out soon.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm so busy.
Yeah, you're busy. You're out in the desert. You're traveling.
Deadlines.
Yeah. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Tokyo.
A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
Georgian, particularly at the source.
Yeah.
I felt like, we're always doing that thing where it's like, ooh, is this going to be the next popular cuisine in America? And I felt like for a moment, Georgian food was going to explode in New York. And then I wondered if it might spread everywhere. And it just didn't happen.
Needs a publicist, I think.
Yeah.
Needs not a publicist, but someone to write about it thoroughly. Yeah. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich? I'm going to come up with 2 off the top of my head. The chopped cheese at Bodega Park, which is very near where we're recording.
Yes.
Also part of the modern Korean discussion.
Yes, I love that place.
The tuna, the bouncy tuna sandwich at Bubba Grandma's, which was inspired by Palace Diner in Bedford, Maine, which made me miss Wandering for Eater as soon as I bit into it. And I knew where they'd gotten this idea from, and I wanted to go back to Maine.
Man. Bill Addison, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thanks so much for having me again, Matt.
Hey, Matt, how are you doing? How was your trip to LA?
Eliza, I'm great. I've had this every couple month urge to not be freaking cold. So I've been making my way to LA for various reasons.
Yeah, how did my hometown treat you? Was it a good trip?
It's your hometown, and I always feel not self-conscious because you're not a judgmental person, but I always feel like you probably have the next best idea when I mention a restaurant because you're local and you're into food and you're smart about these things.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't lived in LA in so long that I think I have my favorites. And when I go back to LA, there's always places I want to go to. But I'm sure wherever you went is something that's been on my list or should be on my list. So I'm eager to hear.
Or you've been. I mean, first off, as a local native, Dan Tana's, do you like it? Do you not? What's the deal?
I actually have never been.
That's okay. It's fine. I mean, I've never been either.
I think people really like it. I didn't really grow up in a family that liked going to old school red sauce steakhouse kind of places. So I haven't been, but I do think a lot of my friends go that live in LA. So it's a fun vibe.
It's definitely one vibe. And one day I'll go. I feel like there's so many newer places. Some of these places I went are not new. There's one that's quite old and amazing. I have such a list to go through. Are you ready?
Yeah, hit me. I'm going to take notes.
Buckle up. And I was in town. I was doing a bunch of interviews at HeadGum Studios for the show. So we have some great guests coming up from LA. And I was there for some other work. I went to Expo West. And that was cool. I saw some friends, made some friends on the floor. But let's talk about restaurants. Eliza, I finally made it to Quarter Sheets.
Oh, did you have fun?
I had a great time. I actually went twice. I went once and had a meal, and then I went second with a friend, and we just got I got a slice of cheesecake to go. Hannah Ziskin's famous, her princess cake, which I also had, but I had her cheesecake, and it was incredible.
I'm about to cry because I've never had her cheesecake, and cheesecake is my favorite dessert, and I really, without hyperbole, think Hannah is such a phenomenal pastry chef. So I just would imagine her cheesecake slaps.
It really does. The start of it is a cracker crust that was really, it was crackery and burnt sugar led, butter led crust. But I would say it is a dense cheesecake, but you don't feel like you're getting this commercial dense. It's not like the light Japanese style, but it's her style, and it was freaking good.
It's
man.
Cream cheese. It's not ricotta.
Exactly. That's
cool.
it. You way to articulate it well. But I was there to actually I had Aaron Lindell on the show, and he's going to be appearing soon. And I just went in. I literally had a slice and a slice of cake. That's what I had. And also he sent me a meatball, and that was pretty good. I had the Sicilian corner, which is, I think, his best slice. I talked to some local writers, and they agree. Broccoli, Calabrian chili, pecorino, and it has a sesame crust that is really good sesame, but really aggressively sesamied in a sesame bagel way. And he's like inspired by bagels in the East Coast, and I thought it was amazing. Great restaurant. I waited in line. I got there at 4:35, and I was the second person in line, which is cool to be the second. The first is you feel a little different. I'm not judging. I was the second, and then by the time they opened at 5, there was like maybe 50 people in line.
Whoa. I mean, they've been getting a lot of good press, so I would imagine. I mean, they always are busy, but it's very much like I heard Hannah once describe it to me as a 5th grade birthday party food, like cake and pizza, which, I mean, who doesn't want to go to a 5th grade birthday party?
Agree. And she's really smart about the way they frame the restaurant as like this kind of like really fun and convivial place. I'll say this, like on paper, I was a little frustrated. Like, why don't you guys open in a bigger spot? And like, why don't you like allow more people in? But like, listen, it's worth the wait. You can really get a sense of service there. A lot of staff. It's like really well run. You could just tell that everyone wanted to be there. Really busy restaurant. I mean, it's just like people, they're pumping out pies.
Yeah. And also like they, started doing pop-ups. This is their brick and mortar. I think clearly a lot of people want to eat their food, myself included. If they wanted to open a New York outpost, I would be there all the time. But I respect the fact that they do how much they can do. They serve how many people they can serve, and they're not trying to go beyond what is manageable for them.
Agree. Moving on, I finally made it to Stir Crazy. Do you know about this place on Melrose?
I've been before.
You've been, so there you go. All right, so we're on the same wavelength here. I'm joking.
It's very cute, like cute. Natural wine bar vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. Started by Mackenzie Hoffman, Harley Wertheimer, and others. I met Harley, really cool guy, worked in the music industry, is an art dealer, and really wants this space to be a place for hospitality, hanging out. Like, I went there with my friend Jason Stewart from How Long Gone podcast and writer of many things on taste. And he and I had a meal, and there was like a long line of people like smoking a lot of cigs, like just blasting cigs, like heaters everywhere, and like don't see it a lot in LA.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It felt like we were like downtown in New York, and it was like a cool crowd. And Jason really likes this place, and a couple of my friends like this place. I had some really good food there, I have to say. First, I mean, I had some upstate New York apple juice, which is funny and great. It was cool they were selling it.
Little homesick,
little homesick, right? a little salve, yeah. I mean, Jason had like a Chenin Blanc from Loire Valley. It's like biodynamic wine zone. But for our food, they're doing like cured hams. They have a nice tight list. They have a crusty bread that they bring in. But I like their celery salad, dude. It was really freaking good. Hard cheese. I think it had stone fruit in it, but I might be confusing with another celery salad. Bold move to put a celery salad on your menu. Not like a crowd pleaser, but when you nail it, it's good.
Yeah, I feel like celery salad is kind of like a sleeper hit on a menu. When you're eating cheese and bread and wine, especially, having that crunchy, bright thing is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's move on. I have a lot to cover. Yongbon. I finally hadn't been there in a year. They kind of rebooted the space. I really like what they've done. They took out the counters. They made it more flowy is the word I'll say. They make it more flowy. And they're on the podcast, and they're going to have a great episode with them in a couple of weeks. I'm going to focus. I could go into a lot of areas with this conversation about them, and you'll hear about it in the interview. Let's talk about their panchan. Their panchan is like really in a cool place right now, and it's a really outstanding addition to what they're doing with modern Korean cuisine. And I have to call it a couple styles of panchan. One is a cold broccoli with yuzu, chicken skin furikake. So it's like this really neat cold or room temp broccoli with like a really like savory dusting on top of it.
That's
Super
so
good.
Cool. I love that.
Smart move, really delicious. I mean, the panchans all were cool. They actually had this really cool avocado and shinko pear panchan, which had hot mustard, almonds, toasted kim, and nutritional yeast. Now, like avo and pear is kind of a cool pairing, and not really was a pun. And I really love the way it broke up some of the other more acidic foods. I thought it like really neutralized it with the creaminess of the avo. And I thought like this is like super technical stuff. Like they really thought this through. And I really liked one other dish is the peju kimchi, which is the Napa cabbage. They actually get it from a market in LA called Kaesong Market. And what they do, and this is, I've never seen this, I've written about Korean food, they actually take this really great product from a local market, buy it and do something with it, which is neat. And I mean, it's beautifully cut first. It looks nice. It's cut from the whole head. And they add habanero, chili, and roasted sesame oil. So it's a really nice kind of extra kimchi, Beshu style. I loved this meal.
Wow, I still have never been, and I try to go every time I'm in LA. So now I'm extra inspired.
Yeah.
Where else did you go?
It's a cool place. A couple other spots. Odafuku is the next spot. Have you been to Odafuku? Do you know this place?
No, where is it?
It's in Gardena. That's not quite, I think that's LA County. It's not Orange County. It's one of the oldest izakayas in the area, and you enter through the kitchen, which is cool. And, it was mostly Japanese American crowd. The guy next to me was really fun, and we got to chatting with him, and he had a bottle of shochu on the table, and it had his like name on it. It was like on masking tape, and so it was like clearly he was a regular. And I was like, he's like, we go here every week. We go here once a week. And really for izakaya cuisine, and down there in like that pocket near Torrance and that little area, that's like some of the best Japanese food you'll find. It's so good. And, I'm just going to call out like the karage, the egg, the rolled egg omelet. And of course, it's known for their soba. And I had a pretty classic hot soba with an egg on top. Holy shit, it was good. It was like right at the end of this long day of being at the trade show. Went there. It's a very satisfying meal.
Restorative.
Related, I went to a nouveau izakaya that's getting a little bit of press. I'm hearing, I posted on Gram, and people were like, that place is good. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I went to a new place. Budonoki. Do you know this place? Have you ever heard of it in your feed?
I feel like I've seen it around, perhaps.
Izakaya in kind of, it has touches of Thailand in there. It's not a classic Japanese izakaya, but they have the best vegetable dish I've had in years, a grilled sweet potato and miso butter, which is a classic combination. Great, but like the way they served it, really great presentation. I say order that dish. Also, they kind of specialize in oshizushi. Do you know oshizushi, the pressed sushi?
Yeah.
Like the flat, it looks like a square.
It's kind of like it was one of the early versions of sushi. It's very old.
It's an old school, exactly. Nice. You know your sushi.
I've written about it.
You've written about it a little bit.
Is it fermented?
These were, they appear to be fresh. They might have been fermented. There wasn't anything on the menu that stated this, but yeah, traditionally they are fermented. They're pressed in a special box to give them that special shape, and they're shaped. And man, they do two versions. I had mine with yellowtail. I love the presentation. I just love this dish. And overall, Budonoki, cool restaurant. Really, really, really smart stuff happening there. I definitely want to go back. Couple more to go.
Okay, I'm eager.
You're eager. All right, so I went to Major Domo. I hadn't been there since the first year they opened, which is probably 7 years ago. I finally made it back because I really, after talking to Marguerite, the CEO, I was like, I got to go check out Major Domo because I'm a big fan of what you do in New York, but I haven't been back. It's as good as I've ever noticed. I think it's a really good restaurant.
Yeah, I went when it first opened, and I think it was maybe the first Momofuku restaurant in LA when it opened.
Absolutely was, yeah.
Which was notable about it. How was it on your return visit?
Really excellent. I had a Bing, so he's known, David Chang, and chefs are known for their very rich butter glazed breads called Bings, and the one with ricotta jam and chili crunch really hit the spot. He had an old Sam recipe on the menu, a pear kimchi with labne, which I thought was really freaking good. Also, oh man, the mushroom rice pot is like one of their specialties now. Really good, crusty in the bottom. I just think that is a must order, and overall you can definitely eat vegetarian, pescatarian. I'd say honestly for LA, that's a rec for pescatarian is Major Domo. Really good spot. I was with my friend who's a pescatarian. We were like, we can order what we want. There's nothing we have to reject. It's a really good restaurant. So that's the last of my restaurants, but I have one more visit. Can you guess where I visited?
You didn't eat there, or you did eat there?
I did eat there. My last of my
Perilla.
Perilla's great. I've been there, and Jihee's gonna cook at our launch party in LA on May 3rd. I'm plugging that here. Our launch party is on May 3rd. So
now serving.
I love those guys. On May 4th, we'll be now serving. You're setting me up
I'm just
so
I'm
beautifully.
guessing your West Coast tour dates.
Our two events happening. Thank you very much. We did not plan this. The last visit was a little shop called Erewhon.
Oh, I've heard of Erewhon.
I've heard of it. I went to two Erewhons. I was in the West Coast. I was in California for 8 days. So when I got there, I went to the Beverly Hills Erewhon.
Did you get the Hailey Bieber smoothie?
I could not stand in that line.
Did you get the raw beef heart smoothie?
I could not stand in those lines. I refused to stand in those lines. I went to Erewhon twice. I just wanted to check in and see what was happening. I went to the one in Silver Lake, which is much more manageable. Parking at both is so great. Honestly, it's a thing that's a little bit like kind of buried. Even the one in West Hollywood, I've had like pretty good luck parking at all three. So,
but you didn't buy anything?
I'm going to talk about that right now.
Okay,
dude.
good.
I'm like looking at my notes. I'm like, I just went there to like take the grams.
To observe, yeah.
No, I bought a bunch of bars and they were great. But I did observe a bunch of things that were happening there. They're selling raw farm is there. You know, this like great raw, this milk, this dairy. It's like $20 a gallon.
Yeah, I think the beef heart smoothie that I mentioned is actually in partnership with them,
Raw
maybe?
Farm.
I'm not sure about that.
I surprisingly saw a massive display for Bjorn corn, which I fucking love. That's from upstate New York. So good.
I love Bjorn corn too.
Love it. I saw this massive display for Torres chips, and I'm like, why? I'm like backlashing Torres chips right now.
Torres chips, the truffly ones?
The truffly ones with like the cool, they have really great branding. It has like the cool like watercolor or oil painting in the...
Yeah. Well, I have to say that my mom lives close to an Erewhon and was telling me that she bought these like double thick tortilla chips from them.
How were they?
It's her greatest regret is that she loves these chips so much. She's like, I should have never tried them because now I want to spend so much money on tortilla chips. But the double tortilla chips, I'm trying to find the name.
It hits the wallet pretty hard at Erewhon. But you know, we're supporting the founders and really like Lex Bakes was there. I got to meet Lex over at the trade show and I love that guy. And you know what? He's selling like one of the top brownies in LA, and I love Lexington Bakes. I had a dirtbag fig bar. And I've trolled them in the past because
I've never heard of this, but it sounds like a band name, kind of.
It does sound like a band name. No, Dirtbag is like a fig bar with like chocolate notes. Sorry, founders, if you're listening, I'm kind of bastardizing your brand, but I liked it. I thought it was a really nice bar, and I appreciate what you're doing, even though the name is fascinating to me. Man, that might be it for my haul at the Erewhons, but. What a fun place, though. I mean, we're kind of kidding. I love going to Erewhon. It's like cool to see many of the founders we talked to live and in color on the shelves. $20 milk I'm going to pass on, but the rest of it's pretty great.
Yeah, what I think is cool about Erewhon is that it is open until 10 p.m. and that people are hanging out in the store until 10 p.m. It's like a nighttime attraction, which I think not everybody knows about or understands, but I always find that to be very interesting to me because in general, a lot of things close in LA kind of on the earlier side. Yeah. So you wouldn't necessarily think that Erewhon would be popping off at night, but it is. And I think if you were looking to find a very certain kind of person to date, that's where you could go is Erewhon after dark.
It's a very good take. I like that a lot. Go find your soulmate at Erewhon. Go get that smoothie. Go get that dirtbag fig bar. Go pick up that $20 gallon of milk. I'm not going to judge. I love it.
Yeah. If you fall in love, then it's only $10 each.
There you go. Good. Well, Liza, I'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot. This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbar. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.